Welcome to the Nerd Enthusiast Music Podcast, where today we have a very special guest who is a professional musician. So we do an interview with him and also discussing his time with another very famous musician. But before I do that, let me just introduce everyone. Frank, how's it going?
What's up, Matt? How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Frank, where can people follow you?
On Twitter at FLD15. That's pretty much the best place.
Awesome. Joining us also is Wes for the first time on the music podcast. Wes, how are you?
Right. I'm good, man. I'm good.
That's right. Why are you here today? What are we going to talk about that's important to you today?
Well, outside of comic books and video games, we're going to talk about my favorite subject, Prince.
Hell yeah. Wes, where can people find you at?
You can find me on Instagram at Grendel5XBX, and you can also catch me at Level Up Entertainment if you're in the Atlantic City area. We got all your comic book and retro video game needs.
There you go. I'm Matt. You guys can follow me at FromNJ2CA. The 2 is a number 2. Now, on to the man himself who's here with us today. Thank you for taking the time out to do this for us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
This is Lil Maceo, and he plays the saxophone professionally for a number of bands, including for himself. So before we jump into anything, we got to start out with a question that Prince would love. Maceo. May I call you Maceo? Is that the preferred way to call it?
Oh, that's it. Yeah, Maceo's fine.
What do you do for fun?
Fun. Video games, comic books, anime. That's what I do.
We have a nerd, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah,
He's one of us.
You made sure to do the right thing up front. You made sure you did your homework ahead of time. Make sure he's there. All good.
So, when we started this, we were going to have a podcast all about Prince, and we are going to do that still. But this episode is kind of like a hybrid. We wanted to do that, but we also wanted to interview you since you're obviously a professional musician. So we wanted to learn about you, your time with Prince, of course. But you said something very interesting right before we started the show. So we made a run of show. We had like a list of questions and stuff we were going to ask. We had a whole flow, and then you just threw a wrench into it right before we started. So thank you for doing that. It's a good wrench to throw because we didn't know you were a nerd, and we didn't know you owned a digital FX company.
Yeah, visual effects company. Yeah.
So if you don't mind talking about what's the name of the company, what do you guys do? If you could just give us some of that.
The name of my company is Digital Alchemy FX, the letter F and the letter X. And, we started out as a small boutique company. It was me, my partner, Tom Phillips, and my other partner, Eric Sibley. And we started out as a 3-man team in New York City in the heart of Times Square. And
Nice.
this thing from like nothing. And, we were working on like car commercials and music videos. And, I got my first big thing, I believe, was BMW. That was the first like, oh, okay, man, I think we made it. We got a BMW commercial. Then we ended up doing this thing for Cartoon Network called the 2-Minute Talk Show with Richard Belzer. So what they did was it was literally a 2-minute talk show, and he had celebrities on. We had to build a virtual set and everything for him. And the idea was to have it in the taxis and the subways, and they would play while you were doing these things, and literally it was 2 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And I think we got like a season out of that. And then I got True Blood. We got the call to do True Blood season 1, which was,
I'm sure things really took off from there.
So, vampire fanatic. So I was honored to do that. So yeah, man.
That's awesome. What year did you guys start out in?
2006 or 5.
Okay.
2006. Yeah.
Nice. So what's that close to? Getting closer to 20 years now, huh? You only got a few years.
Since then, like I said, since we started out and we had, we got the True Blood and stuff, we've all collectively, like, we've all worked on everything from the Avengers, Captain America, the most recently Godzilla versus Kong, WandaVision, the Man of Steel. Um, we did like a bunch of stuff for Reading Rainbow. We did, like I said, a bunch of commercials, Mountain Dew, NFL, the History Channel. Like it just, like I said, it just keeps us busy. And as a musician, as all musicians out there, you guys know this. We have like slow season. For me personally, it's usually between January and March. So when there's nothing going on, I get to do visual effects, and that keeps me afloat and lets me feed my family and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Is that slow season mostly because of the winter, or is there a different reason for that?
I wish I knew because it's hit or miss. Like sometimes, like next year, like in 2023, I have a bunch of stuff booked. I'm going to be in Europe, and I'm going to be, I have a bunch of stuff booked. So, it literally it's just random. I feel like sometimes things just slow down, and people, the holidays have a big part of it. So you expect that in January, at least the first 2 or 3 weeks of January. But I don't know why February and March are slow. I have no idea.
Hey man, well, it's always good to get a break,
Yeah, yeah. That's what my family says. You need a break. Slow down.
So what? As far as the digital effects company goes, what is the your favorite project that you worked on with them?
My favorite.
Or one that stands out to you if you don't want to feel comfortable picking a favorite.
It's just so many. Again, I'm a nerd at heart. So we worked on season 1 of The Flash, CW's Flash. Nice. I got to do the model for Barry Allen, when he was just learning how to run, and so I got to do that. That's one of my pride. Oh, the Spiderman suit with the legs. I was on the team of people who developed that, which was dope.
The Iron Spider suit.
Yeah, the Iron Spider suit. So that was dope.
Cool.
They actually, which sucks is, I'll send you the original sketch and stuff that we have of it. They changed the colors of it, to now it's like gold and stuff. But I'll show you the original design that we had, so you'll get the backstory. I don't know why they. I think our original design looked cooler, but the powers that be, it is what it is.
When Maceo says that to me, I'll include that in the video so you guys can see it, as long as he's okay with it, and then you guys can tell me what you think is better.
Because it's on our Facebook. If you go to the Digital Alchemy Facebook page, you can see all those things up there. So it's up there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Matt, for the record, my favorite superhero is the Flash. By the way, just for the record,
he's a close second for me too.
He's my number one. Always has been. Not that I'm as much of a comic book nerd as some of the guys in our crew. I do more of the poker and the music stuff, but Flash has always been my favorite. In fact, the other night, and I had never watched the series. The other night, my wife and I started watching it from the beginning, and she was asking me because she thought I knew more about it. And she was like, how did he get his superpower? And I'm like, I really don't know, because they started at the beginning, and I didn't even know the backstory. I just knew that, I was like, man, that's better than anything. You could run and be the fastest person in anything. That's awesome. So that was always my favorite.
Listen, I always said if I could have any superpower, I would be the Flash.
Yeah, there you go.
My favorite guy is Iron Man. I'm a huge
Okay,
fan.
All right.
But the Flash is what I say close. I mean, it's real close.
Right there. All right.
Real close second.
Wes is Batman.
There you go. You know it.
Should have known. You look like a Batman guy. He's all stoic back there. He looks like a Batman guy. I figured. What about you, Matt?
I'd probably have to go with Spider-Man. I'm not too big into comic books. Like I used to be in more than when I was younger, but like I liked X-Men a lot and Spider-Man. Like those were like my two things. Like I'll watch anything from X-Men and Spider-Man for sure.
Okay.
Plus, the Spider-Man video games are really good, so
they are.
That kind of makes me lean towards Spider-Man a little bit.
Did you beat Miles Morales yet?
I did not beat Miles Morales. No.
The game is amazing.
I know.
Really good.
Almost
Really
coming
good.
out already. I'm like, you gotta catch up, man.
I do, man, but I gotta problem with one of my fingers. It's messed up, and I have to have like the PS4. They made this back button attachment, so when you swing as Spider-Man, I need to have that back button attachment, and I can't have that on a PS5 controller. So when the PS5 came out, Miles Morales was out, and I was like, well, I'm gonna have to play this on PS4, but I had the PS5, so it was like, I'll play that later, and I just never got back to it.
You gotta get an aftermarket controller. That's all.
Yeah, something like that, man. I don't know.
Get rid of the aftermarket ones. They have a bunch of them now.
I'd have to get like a high-end one though. I can't be buying, I ain't get no Mad Cat.
I remember Mad Cat. I had the steering wheel. Remember this Mad Cat steering wheel?
Oh man, I don't want to remember the Mad Cat steering wheel. No,
it was the absolute worst. Oh my gosh.
So if you didn't know, Wes and I used to work for like EB Games at GameStop. So like we sold those controllers. We know it.
EB. Like nobody remembers Electronic Boutique. I'm like, yo, this used to be Electronic Boutique, bro. And now it's like GameStop. I'm like, I'm glad you said that. Like that's how old. I'm like,
EB Games is the OG.
I'm like, I'm this old. This used to be called Electronic Boutique.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah, when we were both hired there, it was Electronics Boutique because we both came from EB, and then we GameStop and then merged. So we eventually became GameStop, but we're always going to be EB.
I remember when all that went down, bro. I remember when all that went down.
Yeah,
it'll always be EB. Always be
always
EB.
Me too. I still got my EB card. I wish I had my wallet. It's up there. I still remember the little action car you used to the black. I still got my EB card, bro.
Yeah, man. That's what's up.
Oh my goodness.
Heck yeah. So, all right, you're just taking me down. We have this whole plan. I'm throwing it right in the trash. So, what kind of games do you do? I just got to ask before I move on any further. What kind of games do you like?
We're not talking about your music, Maceo. It's not. We found out you got you got other stuff that's more important now.
Exactly. Right now, man, I'm in. Like I was just telling Wes, I'm in the Destiny right now, like Destiny 2. Big Destiny 2 fan. I'm also doing the new Horizon. Horizon.
Forbidden West. Yeah.
So that's what I'm kind of into right now. But I'm a huge fighter guy. Tekken, Street Fighter.
That's right. All day long.
I got trophies for those, bro. I got the tournaments. You know what I mean? Like wrestling. Another tidbit. I used to be a professional wrestler. I don't know if
what
either. Yeah.
That's awesome. What was your wrestling name?
I had several, but
what was your favorite wrestling name?
Most notably, I was the Assassin, which is
That's a good one.
When you think about when I tell you the backstory, it makes sense for all the wrestling nerds out there. But when I first started wrestling, when I came out of wrestling school, I was always a small guy. You know what I mean? And I had to give him, the promoter, the very first promoter I worked for, he was like, all right, you're going to be Blizzard. And I'm like the, okay. So they put me out and like, they designed these icy blue booty shorts. Like, and I was like, and they're like, it wasn't even like a cool blue. When I tell you like icy blue, it was like that icy blue. And I had like these kick pads with icicles hanging off of them, and if I could find a picture, because we're going back like 90. When did I graduate from that wrestling school? So I graduated in wrestling school from 97. So this is like 1998. You know what I mean? Wow. So there's nothing digital yet. But if I can find a picture of as embarrassing as I'll send that to you. So
what federation did you wrestle for? What federation did you wrestle for? What company?
In New York, I was LIWF.
Okay.
East Coast Wrestling. And then in Jersey, it was AWA, All Pro, and ECPW.
Okay. Nice.
I did some light work for the Vince McMahon and but I did like contract work for Vince and those guys. So whenever they would come into town, they would hire local guys. So if you go back to like, I think it was SummerSlam. What year was that? It might have been 2000 or 2001. It was the one where they have the big yellow taxi and Madison Square hanging over the thing. you'll see me in there. I was one of the random nobodies. They had like so I was in that show, and
That's
I
awesome,
was
though.
a bunch of dark matches and stuff with those guys. I got to wrestle Rey Mysterio, Mick Foley, Paul, Triple H. So I got to wrestle a bunch of those guys. So it was cool.
That's awesome. Man, we could do a whole other podcast just about wrestling and like video games and toys and.
You know what? I was the only child for a long time before my sister was born. By the time my sister was born, I was a teenager. You know what I mean? So at that point, I'm like, who wants to be running around with a baby? And then, like pretty soon I had moved out. So, so as an only child, all those years, all I had was me and my imagination. Unlike the kids today, they have like everything kind of just thrown at them.
Kids today just need a tablet. They can get through life with just a tablet. They don't need half the stuff that we used to have.
Exactly. I was laughing with my son. I'm like, I was showing him pictures of like encyclopedias. Like I used to have like, he was like, "What's that?" And I'm like, "Before there was a Wikipedia or Google, this is how you found out everything."
Yeah.
And you guys watch Stranger Things?
Oh yeah.
So we were going through Stranger Things, and they're at the library going through the newspaper thing.
Right.
What it's called right now? I'm having a brain
microfiche.
Yeah. He's like, "What is that?" I'm like, "Again, before there was the internet, this is how you had to find out what happened in history."
That's awesome, man.
So that's just funny. So funny. But I say that to say because I was into a lot of different things, like skateboarding, and I did all this extreme stuff because, motorcycles, and because I was bored. I'm like, I got to keep myself busy. I had all this energy, and I had to, I'm a second degree black belt in Kenpo, and so I've done like all this stuff to try to. So wrestling was just natural. I ran track, played football, baseball. I was just kind of trying to figure out what worked for me. My mom was like, "Oh, you should play an instrument." I'm like, "I don't want to play an instrument. I'm an athlete." And I was an artist, so I used to be able to airbrush and draw very well.
Wow.
And I'm kind of migrating into what happened to me musically. I'm sorry.
No, keep going.
But so if you guys are I'm from New York. I'm from Queens, and so when I was in high school, I took art classes. They was like, "Hey, do you want to take music or you want to take art?" I'm like, "I'm taking art. I want to take music." So I got to senior year. It was 2 weeks before graduation. I'll never forget this. I had passed the SATs. I passed all my regional exams. I passed everything that you could pass. And my guidance counselor brings me into her office, and she sits me down, and she goes, I got good news and bad news for you. And I go, "Okay." She was like, "The good news is you passed everything. I scored very well on my SATs. The college that I wanted to get into accepted me. It was all good." So I was like, "Well, what's the bad news?" She was like, "I can't let you graduate because you didn't meet New York State requirements." I'm like, "What?" New York State requirements require that you take at least one semester of music. And I took art every year. What? And I'm like, "Yo, you dropped the ball."
Wow.
Like,
I never heard that was a requirement anywhere. Wow.
Sure, bro. I got left back because I had to do 6 months of school because I didn't take music, bro. So I got left back for music.
You're like, "I'll teach them. Now I'm going to become a musician. Watch."
So what happened was they were supposed to give me like music history and stuff. You know what I mean? They gave me band, and I'm like, "What am I doing in band?" So I was I used to hate that class. Like the first month, I literally cut. I was just like, "I'm not going." It was my only class, and I'm like, "I'm just not going." So they was like,
"He's like, I'm gonna be at the arcade. I'll see you guys later."
Right. So I eventually go. I show up to the class like a month in, like, and the band teacher's like, "Well, all the instruments are gone, but what do you want to play?" And I didn't know anything about music. I had no idea. I was like, "All right, well, I'm gonna play piano." And he was like, "Dude, this is marching band. There's no piano." Well,
hey, they knew you were a wrestler. You could carry a piano around. That's all. They figured that out.
So I was like, well, let me play the drums. He was like, well, had you been here day one, you might have got the drums, but the drums are all gone. So the only other instrument I knew, and this is from watching like Bugs Bunny and them, was the tuba. So I was like, dude, give me the tuba. And he was like, the tuba? You don't look like a tuba player. Hold on. He went in the back. He came back and handed me a tenor saxophone. He was like, hey, man, here's a saxophone. So, do that. Let's see how you do with this. So he was like, all right, it's time for everybody to kind of make noise. He showed me how to put it together. I put it together. And I just kind of start noodling on it. And he looks over. He's like, have you ever played before? And I said, no. He was like, you got good tone and stuff. I'm like, really? So, I do my time. I graduate. Now, this is now 5 months. I've been playing saxophone. I made all city band. So now I'm doing like the Macy's Day Parade and all this stuff at the
Oh, wow.
5 months.
Wow.
And, I had my first big gig. I played with Mariah Carey at Radio City with Giuliani kind of conducting us. It was amazing.
That's
And
crazy.
that happened. Good night, bud.
So at what point, and you came in obviously like not wanting to do this. At what point did you start to really be like, oh, this is kind of cool and enjoy it? I mean,
Literally,
at some point you had to flick the switch, right?
Right after I graduated, I played for like 6 months, and I'm like, I think I can do this. People started like acknowledging that I was actually really good at this. And then when I got my first gig, I was like, oh, okay. So wait, I can do this and get paid for it? Wait a minute. So it made me, but I was like, so I didn't want to do it. So what ended up happening, I come from a family of teachers. My mom's a teacher and her mom was a teacher, so we're all teachers. So I became a teacher. I was like, oh, I was a high school English teacher. And I was a dean, one of the youngest deans in New York history. We can look that up as a fact. And so, I'm at this point.
This is why you don't have any free time, man. What haven't you done?
I know. So, as a musician, being a teacher is a great gig because my day is from 8 to 2. I get the summers off with pay. I get the weekends off. It was the life. I was living the dream. I'm like, I made the mistake of working summer school 1 year because they're like, oh, they entice you because you get 2 checks. Because as a teacher, you're paid anyway.
Spread it out. Yep.
Summer school, you get a second check. So now I'm making double money. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. No, it sucked. I'll never work summer school again. I did it 1 year. I'm never doing this again. It was the worst. So, so now what I did was as a musician, I would work and tour and stuff all summer while I had a check still, which was, it was the perfect job. Then 1 year, Sony came knocking. I went to go see my friend at a club called the Bag It in the Village in New York City. He invited me down, and he was like, "Bro, come sit in with us." So I got up and I sat in with them, and he was having a bad night. The band was, I don't know what was going on. They were like not killing like I know they normally are. But I got up there, and the crowd started losing their mind. And as I got off the stage, this girl walks over to me, and she says, hey, I'm an A&R from Sony. Here's my card. I don't know who you are or where you've been, but why don't you come on down Monday and let's talk? So I said, okay. Put her card in. What about my business? I meet all kind of yahoos. Everybody wants to be an A&R or somebody claiming to be whatever. I literally didn't take it serious. So Monday came and gone. Tuesday came gone. Wednesday, like I never reached out. So like a week, like almost 2 weeks later, I get a phone call. So what they did was they called my friend who I went to. They went to go see them to scout them, and ended up scouting me. But I never called, so she called him to get my phone number. And she calls me up, and I'm like, "Hello," and she's like, "Hey." Her name is Riley Jones. She was like, "This is Riley. We met like 2 weeks ago at the club. I gave you my card." I was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah." She's like, "You never called," and I'm like, "Wait, are you seriously from Sony? She was like, yes, dumbass. I'm like, oh my gosh. So the next day I go down to Sony and, I sit down and we talk and, Dan Levin and a bunch of guys are there and they're, listening to it was actually remember the mini discs? I had like the little Sony mini disc, so I had my demo on a mini disc. Everybody's like giving out cassettes. I'm like, I'm fancy. Here's my mini disc, man. And it's Sony, so I figured it was a good look because it's a Sony product,
Absolutely.
And they liked it and they offered me a developmental deal. So I signed a three-year developmental deal with Sony. And the first year of that was awesome. I got to play with everybody. I toured. It was awesome. Second and third year, not so much. It was the worst experience of my life.
Ooh.
And what they had their own ideas and stuff of what they wanted to do. And when you're young, and I was young, I was probably 25, 26 at the time. And you think you know everything, especially as dudes. We think we know everything at 25. We figured it out, and we literally have no clue. And if I knew then what I know now, I would have stayed, and I would have just bit my tongue and worked the system out. But no, you can't tell me anything. I'm a tourist. I'm stubborn. I'm like, I know what I'm doing. And they wanted to put me in this super band, and it was terrible. Like they brought all of these musicians from all over the world. Like the keyboard player was from like Switzerland, the drummer was from Japan, bass player was from Germany. It was me, and I got to tell you, I was by far the weakest link. These guys were incredible, but and it was like it was. I felt like I was on Making the Band before Making the Band. They stuck us in a loft and was like, "Hey, make music." Like nobody spoke of the English. It was. I'm like, how are we? But we all played music, so it was tough, man. Nobody had translators. It was rough. We're all like living together in this loft.
Oh my gosh.
So me and the drummer, who we're still friends to this day. The drummer is Tomo. So uh, uh, I speak a little bit of Japanese from watching anime, and that got me into wanting to learn. So I started taking Japanese classes through karate. I learned Japanese, so I spoke enough to be able to communicate with him. So me and him clicked. You know what I mean? And like I said, he's my homie to this day. And we were like, okay, we got to figure this out. The keyboard player was so hell bent on playing this Euro pop stuff that's now today called EDM. But back in 2005, nobody over here cared. It was like noise. We're like, I don't want to hear this. And you hear it one time, the first song, like, okay, cool. But then after about a half an hour of this, you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. You know what I mean? I don't want to hear this anymore. So, it was a disaster. So I went in. I remember I went to Sony. After about a month, I went to Sony. I'm like, listen, I want out. This is not going anywhere. The name of the band was Melodic Sin, and they thought it was going to be the next big thing, like the next After Seven or the Mint Condition, or it was going to be the next big super band, Incognito, or and I was like, yeah, this is not going to work, man. So what they did was they released me from the band, my obligations from the band, and it was like, we have a big show. We've been spending all this money promoting it, and your face is in the promotion. You have to show up to the show. So they agreed to let me play the intermission. So they were going to do 2 sets, and I was going to play in the middle. I said, fine. Just like I said would happen, the first show, we got billboards at Times Square. Like they went all in with this promotion on this place. We did the big show, and the first song, and everybody's like, yeah. Second song came on, more of the same. And by the third song, the crowd checked out. They're like talking to each other. And like, yeah, this is bad. So they finished their set, and now it's time for me to go on. And I'm like, man, I got to go on in front of these hostile cats. It's New York. New Yorkers are hostile, man. Yeah, like, so I get up there, and they're like, who's this cat? So I go in, and I start doing my thing. And I remember, like, to this day, like, if you guys, I don't know if you've ever seen my show, but if you Google and YouTube me, you'll see I'm a big in-your-face kind of guy. I walk around, I'll jump on your table, I'll lap dance you. I don't have any boundaries. You know what I mean? And so I'm doing my thing, but I only had 15 minutes. You know what I mean? So I squeezed everything I had out of those 15 minutes. Standing ovation, people lost their mind. I left. People were like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "I'm done for the night. That's it." And the band came back on. 75% of the crowd left with me. Like when I left,
Wow.
so I got a very.
I mean, Sony should have paid attention to that and like this is clearly not going the way that they wanted it to go.
So the next day I got a very angry phone call requesting my presence down at Sony Plaza. So I get up, I go down to Sony, and they actually blame me for sabotaging the show. And I'm like, what? Like, how dare I play as good as I was? I'm like, I guess. And they shelved me. They shelved me for the remainder of my contract. I couldn't do shows. I couldn't do anything.
Wow.
Man.
They had me shelved. And then at the end of my contract, they looked at me with a smile on their face and was like, hey, I know we just shelved you for a year and a half, but, we're going to offer you $500,000 signing bonus on top of that. That was my first contract, was $500,000. And, to $500,000 to a 25-year-old, you're like, hell yeah. So now they're talking $1 million. They're going to give me another $500,000 plus a $500,000 signing bonus. That's $1 million. Wait a minute. To stay with them. And I was like, nah, I think I'm going to pass. And I walked away and never looked back.
Move your body, don't stop. 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 Stop. Move your body, don't 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 stop. Stop.
Move your body, don't stop the party.
And
Good for you.
everybody thought I was crazy. And I'm like, listen, if this is what I'm truly meant to do, nothing's going to stop me from doing this. And look what happened. I made it on my own. You know what I mean? I did everything I was supposed to do. And I've always been the anti kind of hero as far as music. Like, I'm not on Spotify because Spotify rips us off. I don't believe in supporting Spotify. They said to me, well, you're never going to win a Grammy without Spotify. Who's laughing now? I don't need Spotify. You know what I mean? So, like I said, I believe in doing things my own way. And if it's, and if you're diligent and you stay focused, you can do anything you want to do. Don't let anybody tell you can't. I don't believe in that. When people tell me I can, it makes me work even harder to prove them wrong. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, Maceo, I have a question for you. Being that you're a musician, I got to know, who are your influences?
Oh my God! So originally, I get a lot of slack for this. Originally, my mom was a DJ back in the day. So I was just surrounded by music all the time. As far as saxophone heroes, the very first saxophone I've ever heard was Kenny G. So I was like, oh, okay, I like this Kenny G thing. And when I was with Sony, I was the Black Kenny G. I played soprano. It was the whole in caboodle. And, I had a good sound. And, I have a funny Kenny G story I'm going to tell you guys too. That was it. Then I ended up joining this funk band called Milo Z, New York staple, New York institution, these guys. And the keyboard player / manager was like, hey, man, the Kenny G stuff that you're playing over this is cool, because I used to do this, like how he circular breathe, so I circular breathe. I did, don't lose their mind, but the band is like, come on, man, that's just stupid. so Scotty, his name was Scott Rush. Scotty was like, hey man, you ever heard of Maceo Parker? You should listen to like Maceo Parker. I'm like, who? He was like, what? Blasphemy! How you don't know who Maceo? Like James Brown, Maceo Parker. I'm like, I had no clue who Maceo was. So I go home and I go to that. Then it was a Virgin. It was Virgin Records still in Times Square. I brought every James Brown and Maceo CD I could find. A stack of CDs. I leave there. I spent like $300. I stack of CDs. I go home and I start listening to this stuff, and my mind was blown. I said, "Oh my God, okay, I need to." So I started studying Maceo. Started studying him, and I used to play with a band called The Days of Wild, which was the Prince tribute band. Because my other hero was Prince. Prince. I grew up dressing and idolizing Prince, and I know every scene and every line in Purple Rain. Like, I was that guy. I had the outfits I had the pants with the buttons on the front and everything. I was a huge Prince fan. So, that I'll come back around. I'll circle back around with the Prince thing. But
I think Wes might have a picture of himself looking like Prince at some point that I've heard about. I need to get my hands on this picture, though. I just don't know who has it.
I don't know what you're talking about, Matt.
I end up with, I was just blown away. So I started studying this stuff. So when I was with this band called The Days of Wild, they would always have a celebrity guest. So this one night, it was George Bragg. Now, George Bragg, back in I think it was the 60s, he had Jimi Hendrix was his guitar player. So it was a big deal, this guy. And so we were playing, and I took a solo one night, and he looked over to me, and he says, hey, man, you got a Little Maceo thing about you. I'm going to start calling you Little Maceo. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. So, and that's how Little Maceo was born. It just picked up. Everybody started calling me Little Maceo. Then I'm like, because I used to legit think, yeah, man, I sound like Maceo. I think I sound, until I met Maceo. You ever seen like the people who drive that Chrysler, the big Chrysler? They're like, oh, it looks like a Bentley, until a Bentley pulls up. It doesn't look like a Bentley. So that was what it was for me. Like, I was like, yeah, man, I sound like Maceo. Yeah. And so I met Maceo. If you go to YouTube and you Google Maceo and Little Maceo, you'll see we're playing Pass the Peas together, which
nice.
Peas, come on. I told I could die, and I've died and gone to heaven now. I played Pass the Peas with my hero. It was one of my favorite songs with the guy who, so that was it for me. But listening to that, I'm like, man, I don't sound anything like Maceo. I actually have my own thing. And I was cool with that. And so, I told you, I was telling you guys before we recorded, like the whole, he doesn't remember anybody's name. He calls me, the Cosby Kid, and that's what he says. He goes, hey, Cosby Kid. That's literally what he calls me. And we were talking, we were at the Blue Note. We were at the Blue Note in New York. We were in the green room at the Blue Note. And we were talking, and he goes, we were just laughing and talking about stuff. And I say, hey, man, so people call me Lil Maceo, right? He goes, who calls you that? I said, yeah. He was like, yeah, I don't know about that. I said, yeah, he was like, I'm not going to call you that. I said, I know, you're not, I'm just the Cosby Kid. He was like, yeah, you Cosby Kid. And then he goes, where's your horn at? And I go, it's over there. He's going, go get your horn. I said, all right. And then he goes, he asked his manager to hand him his horn. And we start going to an impromptu jam, like in the green room. And we're playing. And he goes, Lil Maceo, huh? I guess that's all right.
That's when you knew you won him over. That was it. That's all you needed to hear.
So that was it, man. That's how that happened.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, man, like getting the blessing. Like, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that was your
Yeah.
official.
It's like, all right, that's it.
Heck yeah.
So, yeah, man. I guess I should tell you since I touched on the Days of Wild. So that's how I actually met Prince. So Prince used to come to New York, and he would sneak in and watch two bands in particular. He would watch the Days of Wild, which Days of Wild is a Prince song, and then he would watch this other band. It's an incredible band that I'm still a part of, Lenard's Many Moods. So he would literally sneak in and hang out in the dark corner somewhere and watch it. And we both bands did like Prince stuff, and to show you like the respect that he had for Leonard and us. When he was doing I think it was musicology, and we went to the Madison Square Garden. We have an arrangement of Kiss that we do. Leonard came up with this amazing arrangement, and Prince did it that night and pointed at us, was like, I got you guys, and then shouted us out.
Nice.
As he played our arrangement of his song. It was amazing.
That's awesome.
But how we met, the first time I met Prince, he came to see the Days of Wild. We were at the bitter end. He came to see us, and he liked us. He was like, hey, man, you guys want to come to Minneapolis? We're like, yeah. So he flew us out to his house, Paisley Park, to do a private party for his fans. And so we were playing Prince music in Prince's house for Prince's fans, and Prince was our audio engineer. He engineered it for us, and he paid us to do it. It was amazing.
Wow.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, and that was the first time I met Prince. And through the years, we would just see each other, and we were like casual friends, and and we would talk, and he let me pick his brain, and he would come and jump on stage, and everything was like, it was great. You know what I mean? And I'm like, man, I'm hanging out with Prince. Who can say that? I can hang out with Prince. So 2 weeks before he passed away, we were at the Groove on 3rd and McDougal in New York, and he came in. It's just like he always do, tries to sneak in. But this particular time, I don't know if you remember, but a week prior, he was flying and had like an emergency landing because he came to New York a week later, and he had all his bodyguards with him, which he never does. So it's so hilarious. So I don't know if you guys have ever been to the Groove. Well, the Groove is kind of like a railroad kind of club. It's like long. So when you come through the door, it's a long walk up to the stage. So you can see, like I said it to say, we see everybody. So all you see, even with the lights off, like you see like 5 gorillas, and then the second little tiny afro, coming, and he's in the middle of these guys, and they're walking up to his little corner. So I lean over and I said to Michelangelo, who's the lead singer, I was like, hey, His Purple Majesty's in the house. And he goes, what? Oh, okay. So we instantly turned it on. We started doing the Prince stuff. Everything was cool. We're standing outside on our break, and then Prince had somehow snuck out. I don't know, but as we're standing out in the front of the club, black SUV pulls up. Out comes Prince. He walks over, and he's like, and Prince, I don't know if you guys know Prince or anybody, anybody who knows him will confirm this. He doesn't understand boundaries, so he talks to you like this. So he goes, I think, you played the hell out of that thing tonight. You have a card? And I go, yeah, man, take 2. He was like, all right, we're going to eat it. And I finally got the call to play with Prince, go on tour. And he was like, yeah, we'll send you all the stuff and give you the tour schedule and everything.
Wow.
I'm like, oh my God.
That's incredible.
Finally, I'm not just casually hanging out with this guy. I'm about to be official. And then I'll never forget it. I was coming home from the gig, and I got a call from Shelby. Shelby called Michelangelo, and Michelangelo called me, and that's how I found out he had passed. And I had to pull over. I was so devastated. I had to pull over. As a matter of fact, I was coming from I was coming from Atlantic City. I was at the Harris. I was coming from Harris, and I had to pull over, and I just cried on the side of the road for like an hour. I was, as a matter of fact, I think my Facebook Live is still up there somewhere, and I was literally devastated. I couldn't. I thought it was. I was like, I always, if it's on TMZ, it actually happened. You know what I mean? I'm one of those guys, so I immediately go to TMZ, and sure enough, that the headline was, Prince passed away, and I was like, what? And I to this day, it just hurts. I feel like there's a void like missing, and people like, I get a lot of crap for this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I don't care. I got a live mic, right? So Kanye walks around talking about, oh, I'm a musical genius. No, Prince was. You're not even in a conversation with him.
Yeah.
Hey, Maceo. So my biggest thing back in the day when I used to DJ a lot was just listening to the unique sound of Prince. And then once I realized the talents with what he did with playing all the, I guess was 20 something instruments, and heard he played the tracks back over on some of his initial albums. And from what I understand, and I'm sure you know more about it than I do, a lot of that was even when he was very young, like,
Yeah.
Late teens, early 20s, which to me was phenomenal. Like I've never been a musician. Like I said, I play records, not, not an instrument. So I always found the talent of somebody to play one instrument well, let alone 20 plus, just blew me away, especially at a young age. So, any, some comments on that, obviously from your knowledge of being around
I
him.
mean, like his people think it's his first album. It's actually a second album, but his name is Prince. That album, he
Right.
played every instrument. You know what I mean? He literally, there was no band. It was him. He played.
That's
every-
just amazing.
He did all the vocal parts. It was like a one man out. He literally was like a one man show. He did the whole thing himself, and made that album was all right. It wasn't like didn't do like what Purple Rain and stuff did, but it was still
Sure.
he made good money on that album. So yeah. So I'm sorry. I hope I answered that.
Oh yeah, all good. No, like I said, to me as as a fan, just to see that talent at a whole new level compared to, the one hit wonders of the '80s, and the people who just had had a unique, like, and we talked about this before, the people that had just one sound, and Prince reinvented himself. Every album was like, wow, that doesn't sound anything
Right.
like the other album, or
Right.
well, he brought something different into the mix here. And just the creativity itself, coupled with the talent level, to me, all that put together was something special, and that's why I always enjoyed his music.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that I feel like separates Prince from everybody. Like I said earlier, Prince may be Prince, but he's like the king, because unlike a lot of the other artists who was around that time, and even the artists he was influenced by, he
Right.
constantly evolved and changed, to stay relevant. Like, look at, and I'm not picking on anybody by any means, but like I said, I'm huge fans, and we've all studied. But we could take Michael
Right.
Jackson, Bad from even like after Off the Wall,
Right.
Off the Wall has a very unique Quincy Jones sound, because Quincy Jones
For
was the
sure.
mastermind behind it. Thriller changed the game because it was just an eclectic group of music. But after Thriller, think about it, like Bad, History,
Yeah.
they all started sounding the same. It was literally just, okay, this is Michael Jackson's thing, and it is what it is.
And I hate to use the word commercialized. Like, no, I hate to use that, because I think
what it was. And I'm a fan. I listen to it.
you and me both. No, you and me both.
Yeah, and then but you take like Rick James. Prince was huge influence from Rick James. The look and the music. Rick James. If you listen to Rick James stuff, it's all very linear.
What is the 5 fingers say to the face? What? Slap!
It's just the same.
Yeah.
It's all funk. There's no mistaking what it is. When you hear it, you go, okay, I know what that is. James Brown. I'm a huge James Brown fan. Maceo, come on. I'm a huge James Brown fan. And you listen to his stuff through the years, even to his stuff into the 80s. People don't even realize, like, James Brown had like 3 albums out in the 80s and 1 in the 90s. Yeah, you know what I mean? And it all sounds the same. Even all he did was put like the 90s, whatever the technology spin was at the time.
Popped it into the background.
So, everybody grooving on the 1. All right, go to the 4. It was very James Brown. It was his sound, and that's just what it was. You know what I mean? Prince, if you listen, like I said, you listen to Prince, if you listen to the Revolution, that had a sound. That was it. If you listen to NPG, that was
different
his sound. You listen to that stuff, that was his sound. If you listen to Third Eye Girl, that's a sound. Third Eye Girl didn't sound like they didn't if you listen to the way I always go to this tune, Let's Go Crazy. If you listen to the Revolution play Let's Go Crazy, you're like, oh, okay, that's cool. That's the one we fell in love with. If you listen to NPG play it, you're like, oh my God, it's funk overload. It's so funky. If you listen to Third Eye Girl play it, you're like, oh, he turned it into a ballad. It's slow and groovy. Okay. If that's your thing, okay. It's not really my thing, but okay. So, but here it is, the same song through, 3 decades. You know what I mean? 80s, 90s, and now 2000s. And they all sound different, but it's the same song.
That's always been my problem with bands that cover other bands. I'm like, why are you covering the band if you're going to sound like the band? Like, why don't you try to, put your own spin on it, man? Like, this band Dinosaur Jr., they covered The Cure, and it sounds awesome. Like, it's totally their version of a Cure song, and it sounds like fantastic,
That was what's their names? They did Smooth Criminal.
Papa Roach.
Yeah, it wasn't Roach. It was what was their name?
Alien Ant Farm.
Oh yeah.
Alien Ant
there
Farm.
you go.
Yeah.
Good call,
They killed it.
There you go.
And they made it themselves. Like, yo, they killed it. I was like, oh, this is awesome. It reminded me of the Michael Jackson thing, but they made it their own. I'm like, if you're going to cover a song, make it your own. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's like The Cure when they remade Purple Haze.
Yeah, they did Purple Rain. Not a fan. I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan, man. Like, some songs you just gotta leave alone. That was one of them you just gotta leave alone. You know what I mean?
There's certain things you don't mess with.
Yeah. Did you like their version of it?
Of Purple Rain? No. I like their version of Jimi Hendrix Purple Haze though.
Purple Haze was dope. I like The Cure. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a fan of their Purple Rain. I'm not a fan of it.
No.
And it's not hate, or I just don't like I don't know what they try to do with it. Again, some songs you just can't. Even if you remake it, you just gotta remake it the way it is. You know what I mean? You can't change it. It's just it messes with the song, the integrity of the song. You know what I mean? And Purple Rain is one of those songs that you can't put your own spin on it. You can't. You just gotta play it like the record. Play it the way it is. You know what I mean?
Well, I remember after Prince did the Super Bowl halftime show, me and Matt had a conversation the next day, and he was like blown away that he did the Foo Fighters.
Yeah,
and he made it his own.
Yeah, he did.
But you could still tell what the song was.
Right. But you know what? And speaking of that, only Prince gets Rain. Purple Rain in the rain, and they have the purple light, so it looked like Purple Rain. I'm like, only Prince does this happen to, man. It was amazing.
He's the only one that can pull it off.
The only one.
That was the best. That was probably the best, or at least not. It's in the top 3 Super Bowl performances that I've seen in my lifetime. Like, easily in the top 3, maybe number 1.
100%. I mean, my favorite Super Bowls was obviously Prince. Michael Jackson was cool. I love that he came out and stood there for like 10 minutes. Everybody's like losing their mind. People are fainting. He's like, for like 10 minutes. Then he went, and everybody's like, ah! I'm like, no, Michael was king, man. That That's power right there. You don't get that. Then he took his shades off.
They took him another 10 minutes taking his glasses off. I remember that.
It was incredible, man. I'm like, what? And then Bruno Mars destroyed the Super Bowl. I'm like, destroyed the Super Bowl.
All right, guys, welcome back. Sorry for that brief interruption, but we actually had some technical issues. We had to start recording a different day. So, Lil Maceo, Wes, Frank, thank you guys for coming back.
Thanks for having me back. I'm awesome. You guys,
Of course.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we certainly appreciate you taking more time out to wrap things up. We left off talking about Prince. Frank, you had a question about Prince's musical talents.
Yeah, I guess one of the most impressive things to me was when I found out how many different instruments he played, and pretty much at a young age as well. So I forget the number was somewhere in the 20-something range. Maceo,
Yeah,
I'm sure you probably have a better grasp on it than I do. I just remember reading about it.
Yeah, on both Prince's, like, His Name is Prince album, he literally played everything on that album. He played all the instruments, and even when Prince is in the room with you, what, I've never worked for anybody who can, he can tell you exactly what he wants you to do, and then even worse is he can then go, you know what, just give me that and play whatever instrument it is better than you play. He plays it like it's his main instrument, and I'm like,
I want this. I got it. I'll take care of it. Just hand it over. We'll get this done. Don't worry about it.
Man. Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's impressive, man. It's impressive.
Yeah, I mean that to me was always. Listen, I love his music. I love his different styles that he came out with over the years. But that to me was always the most impressive thing. Like I said, I'd read that he'd gone back over and did every track on a couple of different records. So that's cool.
And not only that, like, he arranges, he does all the vocal parts. It's incredible. Like, my dude is a musical genius. You know what I mean? Like, it's never going to be another guy like Prince.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
One question I had was over the time that you knew him, how, did you see him like change it all over time? Like, how did he change? Musically, but also like you knew him, somewhat personally. You met him a few different times. So
Yeah.
what kind of changes did you see in him?
Oh, I watched him. We met during the NPG era. That was the very first time we met, and then I watched him go from, like, I don't want to say self-destructive, but he was really just loose and wild. As the song says, wild and loose. But somewhere along the line, he found God and change. It literally changed his whole world. Because Prince is one of those guys who just said and did pretty much whatever he wanted. You know what I mean? And the profanity went away, the sexuality went away, the objective to women went away. Like, he literally became like it was like a 180 from the Prince that we all grew up, walking around with the assless chaps. You know what I mean? Like, that guy literally just went away. And he started dressing real casual, and he had like the flowing, sheets. Like, it looked like, like sheets and stuff. And it was really like, it was like night and day, and then he grew his hair out, got rid of the chemicals, and walked around with the fro. It was natural. And, like I said, it was a total change. So I got to watch him transition, which was awesome. He stopped using drugs. He got clean, which is why even the circumstances around his death was so shocking, because, the Prince I knew, like I said, literally that dude wouldn't take aspirin. Like, he was clean. Like, he wasn't taking anything. But he did have the surgery. He came off the surgery, and against doctor's orders, he was, supposed to take some time off. He took, I guess, just enough time for him to start walking without the cane. Because if you remember, there was a period when he was doing the award shows and stuff, he was walking around with a cane. when he got off the cane, and he immediately started touring again. And I feel like it was too much. You know what I mean? Too much too soon. And I feel like that was just Prince because he was always trying to figure out a way to stay on top and to make sure that because he loved his fans. He just wanted to always make sure that there wasn't a void or a hole for his fans. He did it so that he could be back doing the things that he loved, in front of the greatest fans in the world. So, it's a shame that it went out. He went out that way because he had a bad cocktail because he was sick, and then the surgery, and it was literally just a perfect storm of just nonsense. That why we don't have my brother here anymore. You know what I mean? It's heartbreaking when you think about it.
I will never forget that day.
It's tough, man. It's tough because I told you it was right before my birthday's on April 24th, so it was literally right before my birthday that he passed away. It was like I said, heartbreaking, heartbreaking, man. Unbelievable. I miss him every day, But like I said, I I feel lucky because I was able to experience and talk with Prince, and I can call him, a friend. Um, a lot of people didn't have that opportunity. You know what I mean? So um, I'm blessed. I'm a better person as a result of having known Prince.
Right. Well, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Were you featured, or did you play any instruments on any of his albums?
No, I wish. It
Okay.
probably would have happened because, like I said, I was scheduled to go out on tour this go round, and
Okay.
then 2 weeks later he passed away. So I probably would have finally made it on one of the albums. There is a bootleg of he did a show in New York. We all went and saw it. He pulled us all up on stage, and I'm playing. I'm sure he records everything. That's another thing. Um, like me, that's where I get it from. I record everything. I don't care what it is. I record it, good, bad, or ugly. I have it, and so did Prince. So there's definitely recordings of me on there somewhere, floating around. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It's definitely in there somewhere, out there somewhere. I mean,
That's
Cool.
awesome.
Did you ever do any of his like smaller shows, like when he's in town?
oh yeah, because he always have the after parties.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So yeah, I would, I did one after party. Um, we were at oh god, what's the name? What was the name of that spot? It was right behind 34th. I think it was Club Black.
Because we know he was notorious for doing those quick hit and run on the spot
Yeah,
shows. Hey, I'm in town. Let's do a show at this club.
yeah, that's literally yeah. It's true, so true. Oh, that's what it is. I don't know.
It was like you had a day's notice, if
If
that.
Oh,
If that.
yeah. Oh yeah, Club Black, New York. Yep.
Hmm.
Club Black, New York. That was it. I thought it was Club Black, but yeah.
And you mentioned it earlier. We talked about the instruments, of course, that he plays, and you kind of mentioned about him recording everything. So a large amount of his music has still yet to be released. Do you know? There's like a few follow-up questions I have here. So do you know why Prince never put out that music? Like, do you know why he didn't want to release it? Any of it?
Yeah, well, we have I have a funny story about that. So the second time I was ever at Paisley Park, the first time I didn't really get to do the tour. You know what I mean? We kind of just was, and he has a club in his estate, and the first time we went, like I said, we were guests and we performed. Prince. We were basically a Prince tribute band, in Prince's house, but we basically stayed confined to the club. The second time I went to Paisley Park, I got to do the tour and everything, and we, walked around, and I got to see the infamous vault.
Nice.
And so, of course, I asked 100 questions, like, and I was like, "So, how much music is in there?" He was like, It's more." He was like, "I've forgotten more music than I can tell you. That's just like thousands and thousands of music in there. And he says, you know, I would take you in there, but I never go in there anymore. And I go, oh, okay. And he goes, yeah. So I go, well, why don't you go in there? Is it just hard because you're thinking about all the music, blah blah blah? Blah. And he goes, no, I can't remember the passcode to get in. So that's I was like, okay, that's fun. Well, he legit never goes in there, but um, he says that he feels like the stuff that he has so many ideas, and for musicians out there, like me personally, I hear music 24/7. Even like no matter what I'm doing, my brain is constantly hearing music, and sometimes you need, thankfully now we have like the iPhones and things you can just sync an idea into your phone and go home and flesh it out. But back in the day, you didn't have that. You would have to try to write everything down or walk around with one of those tape, little interview things, you know what I mean, and try to
Yeah, the little recorders. Yep.
yeah. And so he was just like, he'll have an idea, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And like most people, it sounds great initially, and then he'll walk away and come back and go, yeah, that's not really hitting. I need to flesh it out more. So that's why it doesn't make it. That's literally, he doesn't feel like it's finished, or it needs more work.
Gotcha, that makes sense. So I know he didn't know the passcode. So I'm guessing you didn't listen to any of it because that was my next question. Just because if he didn't know the passcode, there's no way you got in there to listen to any of it.
Yeah. So I do have a huge 2 terabyte hard drive full of print stuff. Some unreleased. I have like rehearsals. I have demos and all this other stuff. Um, so I did listen to some of the stuff, and I'm like, some of it you're like, oh man, this is killing. You should really, you should have really released this. I don't know why he didn't. Then there's some stuff you go, oh yeah, I can see why you didn't release that because it sounds like an idea. You know what I mean? It just sounds incomplete. So even the very last album that Shelby and Mo released, Morris Hayes, um, it was stuff that I believe was partial ideas, and they just fleshed it out and finished it. You know
You
what I
talking
mean?
about Welcome to America?
Yes. So when you listen to it, it's kind of like some of it, you can tell some of it's like older prints, some of it's newer, but you can tell that it wasn't finished. At least I can tell. This stuff was not meant to be heard yet. You know what I mean? It wasn't finished. Just like the Michael
Right.
Jackson stuff. Like if you listen to Michael Jackson's last album, you can tell 100% that stuff was not meant for us to hear. Michael Jackson was just like, he was kind of the same. He was like, this stuff was not meant to be heard. But the powers that be decided, no, we're going to make some money on this, and here we are. And it's the same
It's
thing
the
now.
money.
The record label now owns
Mm-hmm.
the estate. Prince's family doesn't own it. The record label does. And this is what they're going to do. They're going to probably just put out an album every year or every 2 years or whatever, and just make $1 billion. Because we as Prince fans are going to buy it anyway. You know what I mean? Good, bad, or ugly, we're going to buy it. You know what I mean? And it's just so it's sad to watch.
What about you personally? Like, do you have a backlog of music, and would you? I know you're probably not going to release it now because under the same circumstances, right? You want to curate it, you want to make it sound a certain way. Would you like allow whoever has control of your estate when you pass away to be able to do that, or would you kind of like lock it in somehow
That's
where
a
they
good
wouldn't be
question.
able to?
I've never thought about it, but I do. I definitely have a backlog of music. Like I have a new album that's dropping soon. It's called Evolution, and the initial track count for Evolution was 80. Had 80 songs.
That's crazy.
Eight
And I had
zero
little,
80.
yeah, 80.
It's on
And
15
I had
CDs.
I had to
That's it.
whittle it down. I had to
That's
literally
it. Only
whittle it
80.
down to
That's it. That's all you got.
10 or 12. You know what I mean? I ended up with 14, but from 80 to 14 it's tough because for me personally, what I like to, try to have an experience. Like I want to give my fans the same experience that you experience when you come to see me live. So I want when you listen to my CD, I want you to feel the same emotions. I want it to be able to tell a story. I want it to be able to evoke emotions. So there's a flow. It's a story. There's a rhyme to my reason. Like a lot of times you listen to, especially the newer stuff, the songs are kind of scattered about and it doesn't make sense. All they're capitalizing on is the one single that's the hit, and then the rest of the album, you're like, I don't know what's happening here. So with my albums, they always have a flow. So I designed it for you to listen to it from beginning to end. Yeah, and you never get bored. You never get like, oh, that was random.
It's like a lost art in mainstream music today.
Yeah, and so um, and editing, as a video editor, we have a term that's called breaking the line of sight. That's how you know if an edit is clean or not. You don't ever want to have your eyes shift. So it's the same thing when you're doing music. I don't ever want your brain to go, wait, what was that? You know what I mean? Going from song to song. So I really take a lot of time and pride into selecting my track orders and stuff like that.
That's funny. We recently did Matt and I and one of the other nerd enthusiast guys did a review of Led Zeppelin 1, and as much music as I love, I didn't think about it as much, but we started talking about the sequence of the tracks and the flow of and I was like, it's kind of cool. And I guess, being somebody like yourself who's put albums together or whatever you want to call them today, CDs or what have you.
I still call them albums. I'm old.
Yeah, right. I'll always call them albums, I'm sure. Right. But I'm saying I guess I never, as much music as I listen to and love, I never really thought about that concept until we jumped into it, doing a review of the album. And it was kind of cool. It was kind of a concept where I go, oh, wow, all right. I never really thought of that. As much as I thought about things, I never thought about that. So
how important it is.
Yeah, no. Listen, obviously, you put a ton of work into your craft, and that's awesome. And I think people get to appreciate that. But every little nuance is important, and that's great. That's great. That makes it all the more worthwhile to listen to.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great album, by the way. It's a great album.
The one other question that popped up in my head. And I just kind of randomly thought about it was, I remember when Around the World in a Day came out, and I was kind of, I don't know, I guess maybe a lot of people were kind of scratching their heads a little bit on that one.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, was I the only one, or,
No, definitely.
Nope.
And listen, again, I like when things kind of make some turns and do some different things, but I was kind of going, I'm not sure about this one here. And I was trying to, like, being a fan, I was trying to like it some. And, eventually some of the tracks grew on me a little bit. But did you have that same kind of feel? Or
yeah, when I first came Around the World in a Day, it was very different, And you can honestly go through his career and mark the albums that he kind of changed gears. It was so different from like the earlier stuff, and even the stuff that came after it was very, very different. It was kind of like, okay, let me try this, and this is
right
now, and y'all are gonna take it. That's it. This is what I want to do, and this is just take it. And there was some good songs on there. You know what I mean? But
yeah, I guess it was kind of an adjustment. And like I said, I'm the kind of guy who, I have no problem stepping outside the box and trying things. And it took me a while with that one, I guess. That's what I'm saying.
It took everybody, because you figure coming off of like 1999 and Purple Rain, and then we get something totally different. So as a fan, for me, I felt it was like, I'm like, okay, this is his Sgt. Pepper.
Right.
Yeah. Because when Sgt. Pepper came out with the Beatles, that was different.
Yeah, it was. That's a good analogy. I never thought of it that way. That's a real good analogy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but think about it. But think about the hits that came off that album, though. Like you have
Raspberry Beret,
Pop Life, America. You know what I mean? Like there was some joint on there, man. It was definitely even around in the world of the day, as weird as it is, it grew on me. You know what I mean?
No, same with me. Like I said,
It
I think
just
it
grew
took a
on me.
little bit of time, and as much as I played that Purple Rain album, a million times on my turntables.
Right.
This one I was playing it like because I liked it. This one I was playing it more to try to like. I don't know. Maybe that's
Yeah,
the wrong
yeah.
thing.
You
But you
said
know
it
what I'm
right.
saying.
You
I
said it
was
right.
I was I was trying to appreciate it more, and being a fan of his, the album itself.
And it was
That's all.
really that was kind of like the end of the Revolution era too. So it was like
Correct. Yep.
it was coming to a close. He took it as far as he could take it.
Mhm.
It was time to evolve and change, and so it was what it was. But like I
Well,
said,
listen, he didn't play it. He didn't take it, easy.
right, right, right.
Now, because you figure right after that, he changed again
Yeah,
with under the cherry
under the
moon,
cherry moon.
which was a
Which
totally
is
different
a total
sound.
different sound. It was
Yeah.
a total different sound. You know what I mean? He came out swinging with that one. You know what I mean? So yeah, it was definitely departure. Like I said, it was the end of the Revolution era. The ruffled shirts and
Gay. Blouses.
stuff like that, and then it became kind of I think his take on the New Jack Swing era. You know what I mean? It was his take on that. So it was like I said, it was cool. The '90s was different, and it was racy, and it was you're like, yeah, this is what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? So it was
All right, so wrapping things up here, we just got a couple quick questions for you at the end, Maceo.
all right.
What was the best concert, gig, or show that you have ever attended? Not been a part of.
Ever
Attended.
attended? First the thing that comes to mind is musicology at Madison Square Garden. Just
Okay.
blowing. It was such an amazing concert. Then the other one would be Dave Matthews in Central Park.
Really?
That was it opened my mind. Like again, blew my mind. Like how great that band is because I wasn't a huge Dave Matthews fan in the beginning until I saw them live, and I was like, oh my god, it was incredible.
Yeah,
So,
they're very talented for sure. But now let's flip it. So
Yeah.
now, what was the best concert, if you could pick one, or your favorite one that you were a part of, or gig or show or whatever?
Okay. Favorite show. There's a couple. There's definitely a couple. One, hands down, I got this one done. My favorite was Maceo Parker, Blue Note, New York City on my birthday.
Nice.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was by far it. And I've had some pretty awesome gigs, but that gig was just all the stars aligned. Again, it was right. I wouldn't. It was amazing. You know what I mean? So that's the one that I'm taking to the grave with me. And like that was like the pinnacle for me.
Of course. And then finally, you mentioned it earlier. So you got a new album coming out.
Yeah.
It's Evolution, correct?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about it? Do you have a release date planned yet, or what's going on with that?
Yeah. So it was supposed to be released on the 15th of this month, but there was the plant, the processing plant with the supply chain drama. Everything's all kind of screwed up, and I could release it digitally and then get the physical CDs later. But I'm old school. I kind of want to have everything at the same time on the same day, ready to kind of go. So I've delayed it until they can figure out the supply chain madness. Right now, today is the 21st. They claim it'll be done by the 25th. So if it is done and it's in my hand on the 25th, then I'll have it released on the 25th. It's so crazy that I'm doing all this promo. I'm featured in Coffee Talk Jazz Magazine this month, talking about the release of the album. And I've done, like I said, a bunch of morning shows, getting ready for the album. It's called Evolution because I finally think through my long career, I was always trying to figure out where I fit in this crazy spectrum of music. I've always been like one of those musicians that kind of like Dave Matthews. Either you really, really love me or you can't stand me. There is no middle ground. And I think it's also because of the type of music I play. It's not really jazz, it's not pop, it's not funk. It's kind of a fusion of the three. And as such, I've always had a very difficult time finding venues to perform in because jazz clubs don't want to book me because it's not jazz. It's not even close.
You don't fit neatly in a box, and some
Right.
places want that. Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense.
And the pop clubs and the popular clubs, the top 40 clubs, don't want to book me because it's not enough vocals for them. Even though there is some vocals, but it's a good split of instrumental and vocals. But because of that, they don't want to book me because they feel like people are not going to dig it. But I'm like, dude, I'm drawing, 600 people. Like, what do you care?
Yeah.
Right.
If I'm bringing these people to your venue, then let me do what I do. But that's just that I got to the point where I'm not chasing anybody anymore. I'm going to play where I'm appreciated. Like I said, I figured out who I am as an artist, which is why the album's called Evolution. And I hope that the music that I selected to be a part of this album is a really good reflection of how much I've grown since its predecessor. His name is Kareem. So I feel like there's been a lot of growth. So, we'll see what happens with the fans.
Cool.
Excellent.
So cut it down from 80 to like 60 or 70, right?
Yeah, from 80 to 14, man. Yeah.
That means you took the 14 best out of 80, so you're getting the cream of the crop.
In my opinion, yeah, it's so weird because one of the things, and Frank will tell you as a DJ, the songs that people think are hits sometimes aren't hits. The ones that you feel like are duds.
It's weird. Yeah, agreed.
It's so crazy. Like I have a song called Tomorrow, which is it's on the radio and it's super popular, and I don't even understand it. I didn't think. I mean, it was cool to me, but I'm like, it's one of those songs that is so simple. Like it's literally like two chords, and it's nothing extravagant going on. It's almost like a Kenny G tune. It's like super simple, and it's a catchy melody, and it's like the most popular song we have right now. People go bananas over this song, and I'm like, I can't believe that Tomorrow is making the rounds and doing the thing.
Hey, that's a good problem to have. Where you never know. I mean, I'm sure that's happened with many artists over the years, where they're like, "Really, that's the one you're running with? Okay, as long as you like it, I'm going to keep playing it. That's cool." No, listen, we all stumble upon stuff, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's awesome.
Hidden gems, they say. I'm like, I have songs that I'm like, yeah, this is a guaranteed.
Yeah, and people are like, yeah,
right, and just bald. And I'm like,
funny.
I love this crap, and then everybody's like, yeah. Like if you go to YouTube, I think my Tomorrow video is in the 20,000 views or something like that. I'm like, what? And it got the first 10,000 like in like 2 days, and I was like,
wow.
I was like blown away. I was just like,
that's good stuff.
Couldn't believe it. It was like I was just blown away by it.
I think you just got to hit that primal nerve that's embedded in all human beings, and whatever nerve that is, once you hit it, it doesn't matter what it is. It's like, oh, everybody just like turns their head at the same time. What's that?
Sure, that's true. It's very, very true, man. That's funny.
But hey, Maceo, it's been awesome talking with you, man. If people want to follow you, where can they follow you at, online or in person, or where do you want people to be able to?
Yeah, my Instagram and Facebook are both Lil Maceo Funk, LilMaceoFunk. And I also have LilMaceo.com, which you can't go wrong with. You can always figure out when I'm coming to your town or whatever, what I'm doing. So yeah, man, thank you guys so much. I had an amazing time with you guys. I hope we get to do it again,
Yeah, it was great talking about you, your career, Prince, all that good stuff.
And it's nice. It's nice to have a solid, good person on. I mean, that's us. I mean, good people are good people, and having somebody who's appreciative of the industry, that works hard, that is not just about, we can say it's other people. They're always just worried about me, 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 me. You're talking about others, appreciative, and what you learn from other people, and that's just to me, a cool thing. I
I
think
tell people all the time, man, I'm blessed. I'm so happy to be able to do something that brings people so much joy. I get to entertain and make people happy, and I get paid for it. Like, I
yeah,
think
right.
I'm the world. You know what I mean? Like, I get to bring the party to people. I love it, man. I'm just happy to be here. Like I said, it could have went any number of ways. I could have still been teaching. You know what I mean? But I made the hard decision to do this and never looked back. So I'm happy. I'm blessed.
Well, I just followed you on Facebook now, so there you go.
Awesome. I'm gonna follow you back for sure. For sure.
Oh yeah.
Thank you guys again, man.
Hey,
Thank
thanks.
you. Thank
We
you so much,
appreciate
man.
the time, Maceo.
Frank, where can people follow you at?
I am on Twitter at FLD15 for the most part, on Facebook as well.
Awesome. Wes, what about you, sir?
You can follow me on Instagram at Grendel5XBX. And for the gaming nerds out there, if you're ever in the Atlantic City area, you can find me at Level Up Entertainment, Hamilton Mall.
Awesome. I'm Matt. You guys can follow me.
I'm gonna be up that way next week, so I'm gonna pop in and see you.
Come
Don't
on.
go in there. He's going to make you spend money. I live across the country, and he's into my wild every other week.
That's all right, man. Like I said, I spend money for the cause. Listen, gaming is an expensive hobby, man. I gotta tell you.
No joke. No joke. I'm Matt. You guys can follow me at From NJ to CA. The 2 is a number 2. Thank you guys for listening and watching. It's been an Enthusiast Music Podcast. And until next time, you guys take care.